Islamic leaders throughout the world who were like very hostile related towards the West, political West. And he was saying, look, apart from the politics, but we can take the organization of the Western society as a social organization as basically as the example how it should be. They're more developed, they actually have more money, they're way more organized, and that's what we need to learn from them. He said, like, sorry for being honest, sweet lies do not help, while bitter truths can have a healing power.
This is day 5, just a few hours before we leave, and one of the last places we visited, which is right next to our hotel there, is the Alija Izetbegovic Museum. So he's buried, we can't see it from here, but it's just across this field. So you can see this graveyard here. There's one on the left side, and there's like a dome where you can see where he's buried. But Alija Izetbegovic was the first president of the Republic of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and he kind of epitomizes what Bosnia is about. I mean, firstly, they've buried him in this place. You can see this is like an old kind of castle-ish area. This is from the Ottoman period. From the 1700s, this was like a gate area because some of the Austro-Hungary Empire sneaked in and set the city on fire. They decided to build this area like a gate, basically, from this neighborhood, and this is how they protected the area. So just that for a bit of context, and then they put him here. But yeah, Alija Izetbegovic was somebody that wanted peace for the Bosnian people. He believed Bosnia wasn't just a country, but an idea, that a place where different cultures and different religions can sort of coexist peacefully, which was, I think, very noble and honourable. And I think the history of Sarajevo is like that as such, because it's always been between different civilizations, from the sort of Western Roman Empire and Eastern Roman Empire, then from the Austro-Hungary Empire, then you got Ottoman Empire. It's seen a lot of different cultures, and it's always had that mix of being a place where the cultures would meet, and that's why that kind of linked into his idea. But he was someone that also wrote a book about Islam in the East and West, and sort of had an ideology that democratic, but had Islamic principles within it, which I think is quite interesting. His life, I guess they say, sort of summarizes what Bosnia has sort of gone through and what it's sort of about. So he was sent to prison twice by 2 different regimes. And he was very anti-fascist, and sort of very anti-fascist, and his ideas and principles were against that. But it's just like, it's being here, I think, this is the last kind of point. Visiting Bosnia has been a very interesting experience. Like, I would recommend everyone to visit it. It's got so much about it, so much history. The people of Bosnia, I think, they might not everyone agrees with Alija Izetbegovic's political decisions, but in terms of his moral values, he always believed that no matter what you do, you have to do it right, and you have to do it by the right morals, by the Islamic morals. And I think if you look at it from today's point of view, and we look back at history, you see who was right and who was wrong. We can tell that the Bosnian people were the truly honourable people, the noble people, whereas on the other side, the Serbs were the dishonourable people. They didn't honour their agreements. They sabotaged, mosques. For example, in Belgrade, there was hundreds of mosques, and there's literally 1 or 2 left. Whereas in Sarajevo and Bosnia, they've kept the monuments, they've preserved them, which sort of shows what their values are about, what the Bosnian people are about. And I feel like the genocide has woken up many of them in terms of deen. Like one of the tour guides was telling me before, they weren't really that practicing, but they realised they're being killed because they're Muslim. Why is that? And I think a lot of them sort of woke up to the deen and what it's really about. And yeah, I just it's been a very interesting and insightful trip. And now I would advise you all to come and visit it for yourself and feel it for yourself, hear the stories for yourself. You know, at the end of the day, kind of gets you thinking at the time how difficult it must have been. But yeah, he still stuck to his moral values. It's a question for us, you know, when we come across hardship and we come across, you know, any sort of work we do, we sort of want to take the shortcuts, the easy way that will kind of yield us the best outcomes. But we don't really always think, you know, what's the moral argument behind this. And Bosnia may not have had the military strength, but they had the moral strength. And even then, they started building the army up and they started fighting back, and they resisted the Serbian forces, and they got to a point where they were taking back their territory. And until then, that's when the whole Dayton agreement and all that stuff happened to sort of stop them from taking it even more. But again, his ground was the moral ground. So that's like, kind of gives you an idea of the Bosnia, its people, the people I've met. Like, you could tell they have that element of moral in them. And, you know, in the long run, in the long term, we look back, it's the Bosnians that captured the hearts and really have sort of won over the people. Hopefully, of course, you know, it's still very raw in terms of dealing with the after effects of the genocide, but inshallah, in the long run, Bosnia will prosper and sort of pick up again. And it's a lot of work for that to happen, but it's, yeah, I'm glad I came. It's been very insightful. It's given me a lot to reflect on. And, you know, these people, literally from the brink of extinction, still got their risk, still got their food. And even though they literally had a blockade, they're still managing. Allah still provided. Then, you know, who are we to sort of keep on complaining and worrying and just chasing wealth when it's already written for us? That's one of the things that I've picked up, and also always thinking about the moral side of things. Are we really doing things for the sake of Allah? Are we really doing it for the right reasons? Or do we want the short way, the easy way, to get the results or the outcomes that we want? And I think I would probably maybe try visiting again. It's a beautiful place. It's got clean spring water. It's got amazing people. They're very like intellectual, good, sort of knowledgeable people, honourable people. They've been through a lot, and I think as the very least, as Muslims in the West, we should come and hear the story. We should raise awareness of Srebrenica. We shouldn't forget it wasn't long ago at all. And sadly, I barely knew about it, if I'm honest. And before, I had an awareness session back at work a few years ago, and that's about it. Like, I think coming here, I felt it a lot more, and I feel like a lot of you would feel it a lot more if you come and visit. I think one of the things to add as well about Alija Izetbegovic was that he was 70, like in his 70s. So really, he could have just retired. He didn't have to be there, but he still stuck through. And speaking to one of the guys in the museum, Tayyip, he goes, look, like a lot of the Muslim leaders at the time that had sort of hostilities towards the West, you know, would have said to him, you should fight, you should go out, you know, go all out and finish the war. And even at the end, where the Bosnians were making ground before the Dayton Agreement, someone was saying, why do you carry on? You can take on more land. But then I think Leah would have felt, and I mean the Bosnian people would have felt that they would have been condemned because of that, because they would have lost the moral high ground, or the moral ground that they had, that they built so well. And he was saying, like, one of his cousins, I mean his dad, he died in the battles in 1994, and one of his cousins, he was just a few months before the agreement, he turned 18, and he was enlisted for the army, and then, you know, he died just he died in the war, basically. So his point was that, if the agreement came 2 months earlier, then maybe his cousin would have lived. So he says, it's very easy for us when we're not in the position that they were going through. Genocide, rape, and everything. Like, it's very easy for us to say, yeah, you should have fought on, you should have carried on, but without really knowing what would the implications have been of that. Because he says, we'd rather prefer the political struggle rather than what we had to go through with the military and the wars, because the amount of bad stuff that happened to them, the atrocities, is really, really bad. And he goes, even though it's not perfect, if you look at other places where wars have carried on, and look how much instability is, look how much oppression there is, is that really the right answer? So perhaps Alija Izetbegovic's legacy, he may have chosen the agreement. And he said, God is about my witness. I've done everything I could. I couldn't have done anything better. So Allah will be the judge of him for that. But it's just like, he chose peace. And because he chose peace, the country is where it is today. And it's now a political struggle, which, inshallah, they'll get through. But there's no longer all those lives being lost, all those people being killed, all those, the massacres that are being done, that stopped. The people are living now. Perhaps if they carried on, maybe the war would have carried on. Perhaps if they carried on, maybe there'd be more condemnation, maybe more escalation, maybe Bosnia wouldn't be where it is today. So in that kind of context, I think it tells you, maybe the taking the moral ground and choosing peace was the best thing that you could do. And it's an interesting discussion that I had with him, and he was just telling me that stuff. So I just wanted to share that, because it's very easy for myself, for us, where we're living in our comforts, to make judgments, but we don't really know what the real thing was and what the actual experience was like. But I do want to end on that note, and I want to end on saying, shout out to Meet Bosnia, an amazing tour group. Like, I don't really like spending on tours. I like saving money, but I just thought I'm coming to Bosnia. There's a lot more. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of like stuff that's been happening there. I should go with a tour group, and I chose to go with them. I booked like the free walking tour. You give a little tip at the end of that. So that's the custom. Then I did the Mostar tour, the Srebrenica tour, and then the full of Yugoslavia Sarajevo tour. And altogether, for like one person, it's about 135 euros. Because I booked for 2 people, 270 euros, so say 10% basically. But they were like amazing. I'm 100% happy that I did that, and it was probably the best investment I've made on this holiday. Because the brothers, Adnan, and Adi, amazing guy. My brother now, they gave really useful insight, and not just on this is, like I said, this is what this is, and this is this area, but they gave like a proper, full depth, and a lot about the situation today as well. So I would recommend, if you're going to Bosnia and you want to do those tours, then definitely I'll link up with them, especially brother Adi. He wants to work in more Muslim organizations, and he wants to show Muslim people around more, because he enjoys that. And which is me, just 2 of us with him on the last day yesterday, or the 4th day. So that was really good. Got a lot of unfiltered insight, rather than it being filtered down to cater for everyone else. So you got the full Islamic Muslim insight, the privileges of us. But this is where I stayed. Sure you can see it. Hotel Aziza. Very good customer service. Breakfast was nice. It is a bit up the hill though, so just be wary of that. If you're walking up, it's a bit of a workout, but it's not a bad thing. But alhamdulillah, I'm glad I visited Bosnia. If I come back again, I may spend more time in Mostar or like in the other areas. But Sarajevo, I'm happy to say that I've done. I'm glad I've been able to share some of my insights with you, and pray you get the opportunity to visit, because it is thought-provoking. It will get you reflecting on things, and I think it will help you to grow as a person. especially on the points of like risk, choosing the right moral choice, really thinking, you know, what's the right way, like especially on a secular level, they're still trying to figure out we have Islam, but it's not always black and white. That's one of the things that I've learned, and it's kind of sort of new, but it's been very much instilled that, you know, things aren't just black and white. It's not, okay, why didn't you do this or you didn't do that. So there's a lot of complexities, different points of view, nuances. You can't just draw one conclusion from another. You have to really listen to the whole story and then, you know, really try different things. And dialogue, I think, is very, very important. That's one point Brother Adi mentioned a lot. So yeah, I could go on and on. I'm just going to zoom in. You can see that dome right in the middle. That's where the turba of Alija Izetbegovic is, and that's, I believe, where he's buried. And these graves here are the martyrs, the protectors of Sarajevo. So may Allah grant them all Jannah. Ameen. And with that, I will bring this trip to an end, this vlog for Bosnia to an end, and I'm glad I was able to share it. Like, yeah, I'm probably gonna go away and reflect a lot. Right now, I'm trying to reflect as I talk, but I'm a deep reflector, so the points won't come to me right now. Will probably come to me on the plane or somewhere else in a random time when I'm in my cave. But anyway, with that, Assalamu alaikum. I will share some documentaries that I watched before, and kind of give me a bit of a preparation and a bit of knowledge before I came, which is very useful. So I'll put that in the comments. But yeah, let me know how you found it and if you have any reflections that you want to share. Otherwise, till next time, maybe back in Turkey or who knows where.